Thank you for having me. I grew up in a very small village in Mauritius, a village where there was hardly any form of entertainment. And there was a school, it was a Roman Catholic school, and next to that school there was a small library. And why I'm saying this is that because I'm a Muslim, I'm Islam by faith, and I went to a Catholic school all my life. That's important. This diversity, this kind of integration into the society is very important. It was important for me. So I grew up with that richness of the culture that the village had. It was to me a microcosm of the world. And when I was in school, at least in secondary school, this is when science education is imparted to young children. And I went to a convent school, Loreto Convent School, and there it was a brand new building, and there was hardly any infrastructure to teach science. So our teachers used to take us to a forest or a river, and we were taught literally the visu, the web of life. And that got me very interested. And especially the role of the teacher has been instrumental because they have been able to demystify science for me. They could answer all the question, for a very inquisitive 11-year-old. But the most important moment for me were kind of the moonshot moment, when man landed in the moon. You could see that live. We were one of the few countries in the southern hemisphere who could watch it live. Then the second instance came when the first test tube baby was born, Louise Brown. And I was saying to myself, wow, if science can be this transformational, science is for me. And interestingly, when it came to choosing to go to college, my father said to me, why don't you go and see the career guidance officer? He may have some ideas for you in terms of career choices to be made. And I'm still small, short. I was thinner at the time. And I walked through that door, and the guy looked at me and says, why do you want to do science? Science is for boys. It's not for girls. And also when you come back, there'll be no job for you because, Mauritius, we're far away from everywhere else. There'll be no job. I would suggest you go and do other things. So I went home and I said to my father, well, this is what he said. So he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to do science because I was already very passionate about it. One thing I must say, it was passion. I use that very, very carefully because it was passion. It's been passion and eventually risk-taking that got me to where I landed eventually. So I went to the UK, I did a degree in chemistry, and I had also the privilege of going to university that was offering a sandwich course at the time. And the 1 year out in industry was with a big agrochemical firm, US, and I was posted in the discovery group. So I could then go and see how research was being done in industry. Of course, it's basically fundamental research, of course, with application straight away. And I learned the ropes of research. So when I came back to finish my degree, I was toying with the idea of, doing something else. I went home, and the country was in crisis because we just came out of independence, so there was huge unemployment. And I said to my father, I'm going to go back and do a PhD. And okay, do a PhD. I was very keen, of course, in the chemistry of carbon, so I did a PhD in organic chemistry. And still not knowing what to do with that because it was driven up to that point through passion. And then after my PhD, I decided to come back home, and my mother convinced me to stay because I was already given a green card to go to the United States to do a postdoc. And so I stayed. I joined the University of Mauritius. But of course, there, as soon as I reached the university, of course, all my high-flying ideas fell flat because I saw the infrastructure which wasn't there. And my colleagues at the time were telling me, you might have to choose to just end up just teaching. But I was still passionate about science and doing things in research. This is when I fell into the world of plants. Why plants? We are a biodiversity hotspot, one of the 42 across the world. So I knew then that there will be new molecules to be found in this hotspot. So I was combining kind of my background in organic chemistry to probing into a new area, which was, of course, analytical chemistry. And so I started probing this. And of course, chance will smile at you only once. There was at the time a major project which was being funded under the aegis of the Indian Ocean Commission, which of course funded by the European Development Fund because the EU didn't exist at the time. And they were funding an inventory and study of medicinal and aromatic plants of the Indian Ocean. So I had the profile, so I joined, and I developed the database, maybe one of the very first comprehensive database on medicinal and aromatic plants. Now, why it's important is that African traditional knowledge is not really documented. There's few and far between, unlike China, unlike India, where it has been systematic. So I helped add to the body of literature. And interestingly, when I was doing that, I was also interviewing many of our grandmothers on the recipe they were using to treat people. So I said to myself that, eventually, because by that time I was moving up the ladder in academia, became first professor, woman professor, and all the rest of it. But I was still very focused on the academic strain. That is, just getting the plant, extracting the molecule, publishing. But when I was talking to these ladies, I realized that, there's much more to plants than what people are saying. Because at the time, science was studied in a very monolithic fashion. You're either a chemist, it has to be the silo of chemistry, silo of physics. But I was convinced even then that much more is to be found if you look at the overlapping features, silos, right, between the multi, and I tried to adopt a multidisciplinary approach to what I was doing. Then I said to myself, I'm going to reorient my work and start validating these recipes that our grandmothers were using. So I chose two strands. It's a question of priority. One strand going into infectious diseases, and the other strand going into conditions of diabetes, because most of us are from everywhere. A high percentage of Mauritians are from the Indian subcontinent, where there is a predominance of diabetes. So I said, okay, I'll test these. And that was absolutely mind-blowing, because I validated the knowledge of our grandmothers. Then I said to myself, okay, I've done so much. I've published a database and all the rest of it. And I was going up the ladder, academic ladder, administrative ladder. I became the deputy vice chancellor. And when my term ended, because I wasn't given the post of vice chancellor, so I said to myself, I will take the step into the unknown and create my own enterprise. Now, why this matters is because at the time, the ecosystem wasn't there. And people, either you were an academic, you become professor, you teach until you retire. And I said, I will do something different. I was going to translate this database into a business where we'll be addressing the areas, the fields of nutrition, medicine, cosmetics, and perfumery, because this was exactly where we were going back to nature for. And so I added a pillar in an existing holding company that were doing clinical trials. So that pillar would actually, kind of make the whole circle go full round. And I was doing very well at the time. And then there was a call for office, and the politician at the time thought I ticked many boxes. I was a woman, a Muslim, the minority religion. I had credibility, and I was still untouched by the world of politics, because I've never been in the world of politics. They proposed that I put my name down for presidency. I said, okay. I have nothing to lose anymore, because I was retired from the university. And there was a lot of backlash from many spheres, but I stood my ground. Again, risk-taking. And by December 2014, they had won with a landslide. So I said to myself at that day, I shall be president. Why you mentioned a very key word, girls, right? Population in Africa by 2050 will be 2.5 billion. Out of this 2.5 billion, we'll have 52% of the female gender, right? And Africa will do so much more, can achieve so much more by really incorporating the talent for women. And I will just give you one area where female talent matters, and it's already happening, in the field of agriculture, for example. If we look at agriculture, let's be very clear, women feed Africa, right? And if we are going to promote agriculture, again, I'll just put some figures. Africa right now, 80% of food generated for Africa is generated by smallholder farmers. 80%, 1 or 2 acres of land, that's how they produce it. And if you look at what is happening, the vagaries of climate change, how this will impact this sector, we are talking about a very important component of food security. And nowadays, we have to promote this sector. Now, why I insist on promoting this sector, we have to change the image associated with agriculture. Because often when people put posters of agriculture in Africa, you'll see that woman in the field, the hot sun, very dry land, a baby on her back with a hoe digging. I mean, this is not the image of agriculture. Because agriculture, if you go by multilateral banks, the value of agriculture in Africa is $1 trillion. Now, can you imagine what we will do, just one sector, agriculture, if you start looking at post-harvest technologies to safeguard the food, if you start transforming it, if you start really looking at distribution, we'll address food security, we'll address, of course, manufacturing innovation, we'll be creating jobs for the young people. Yesterday in the conference I'm here for, I said that 60% of the young people who are coming out of university, 12 million reaching the job market every year, only 3 million will find jobs. And out of all the unemployed, 60% are young people. So what do we do with this mass? I mean, we have seen what happened to Tunisia, right? This is how the Arab Spring started. The youth can be a boon, but the youth can be a bane. And we have to be very, very mindful when looking at this. And there's so much that we can do through leveraging technology, through leveraging science, through leveraging all the tools that should be at disposal for us to create a better tomorrow. And can be done through, of course, through the vantage point of the youth people, of the young people. I think the fact that you're promoting innovation, I think this is key. And now that the telephony is being spread right across Africa, and people have access to mobile phone, they have access to information. And I think this is probably the era where information has really been decentralized, of course, really been made accessible to democratized, made accessible to everybody. I think IDTV has a key role to play in promoting all these ideas and changing mindset. I've just looked at one area of agriculture, but there's so much more to be made through fintech. We've seen how, for example, Kenya has been very good with M-Pesa, where they have been able to touch the unbanked. So I think there's so much that messaging can be sent through, and also to make our leaders think twice, because these young people can promote change. And they can change the trajectory of a government. We have seen recently what happened in Kenya, right, when the finance bill was going to be passed, and they weren't happy with it. So I think they have a very, very strong, I'm not going to say weapon, but a tool to promote change. And I think here, this TV, IDTV, has a very good, big role to play in promoting precisely this kind of narrative. To leverage science, to leverage technology, and also to show, to bring out our role models. There are so many powerful role models in Africa that we need to promote. And I was saying yesterday, I would say it here, and this is a message to all your libraries across Nigeria. Bring out all your authors. I was very surprised when I went to the bookshop and they didn't have a single book of Wole Soyinka. And he's a champion. He's our role model. He needs to be showcased. Achebe, for example, Chinua Achebe, also his books have to be there. And we need to showcase our heroes. And I think there you have a very key role to play. As I've just mentioned, the future of this continent will be built just like a country like Italy, which has focused a lot on entrepreneurship, family businesses. Africa has a very central role to play in promoting this area of entrepreneurship. And what we have to do is help the government create the ecosystem so that it becomes easier for them to actually cross. And you know the very infamous saying that we have to cross the valley of death. And there's so many new technologies sitting in the drawers of universities So we have to make sure that this gets out, because we need to provide indigenous solutions as well to Africa. And also, more importantly, we need to go back to our indigenous technologies which have worked and who have been repressed at some point in our history, bring them out again so that solutions will be more adapted for our own well-being and, of course, for the future of our people.